It happened.
Yeah,
The thing we couldn't decide if we wanted to have
yeah, and
happened.
we're gonna sit here still torn about it, but excited because at our core, we all sat there a few days ago and said,
Yeah.
"This guy's special. We want this guy." But what are you giving up? And you gave up a lot.
I mean, this was always the framework, right? And so welcome into everybody here. And I honestly, like, I haven't spoken yet since it happened. And like, first the alert crosses Celtics get Jrue Holiday from Woj. And immediately it's like, please no Rob, please no Rob, please no Rob, please no Rob. And then Shams reports it and doesn't include Rob's name in there either. And I was like, oh, there's a chance. And then 2 minutes later, boom, Rob
It
is
was
in.
never
So
gonna be the Hauser
we knew
Griffin
that. We knew
Walsh thing.
that. We knew that.
Yeah.
We knew it. The question was always, and when we came down to it on this last show, would it be Al? Would it be Rob? I know you have your opinions, Bobby. I honestly think you're in the minority. I think obviously Rob is more coveted. There's risk involved with Rob, but I mean, again, he's younger on a great contract. And someone you could have thought might have been a building block going forward. And this was the first year off season that you had a shot at seeing what he would look like healthy, and I really wanted to see it. There's a interview with Forsberg this morning, and he's all geeked up. He's a guy everybody loves. Like I think the guys are going to be excited and bummed because I think Rob is like a little brother there that they're losing. I think Tatum's going to be bummed out. I honestly
Tatum loves him.
I'm legit like bummed. Like not having Rob here really bums me out. I get all the reasons why you do this, and we kind of went over a lot of this before. Like what it's going to look like and how thin they would be if they make this move. And that's where we are. They make the move. They are super, super, super thin everywhere. And that's that. I'm curious what people here in the chat think. But yeah, I mean,
Where do you want to start? The Rob piece?
I, I mean, I don't know. Let's just
So
say,
let's go back to when the show started, 2020. You loved Rob from the day you saw him in the
yeah, I
bubble.
know, I
And
know.
then next year, they're not playing him a ton. The following year, he tears the meniscus after that 25 game stretch. We'll always talk about the 25 games where they went 22-3. Best defense any of us had ever seen with the Rob Horford duo, Ime coaching, the scheme, the whole thing. It's crazy how fast all of that's gone. Ime, Smart, Rob. It stinks. I mean, in many ways, I've had my doubts about Rob, and I like him being in this deal just because I continue to have my doubts about him. But when he was right, when he was on, he really was maybe the most exciting player I've ever seen in a Celtics uniform. The stuff
Yeah.
he could do, protecting the rim, in the pick and roll, it was special. And the problem with it was you just never knew. 35 games last year didn't quite look the same for much of it. And you were on that, John, for much of the year, just how unathletic he looked at times, at least compared to the year before. Ends up on the bench. In all probability, would have ended up on the bench this year, I think, trying to figure out that double big combination there. So you had to do it.
AG1, I love it. I love it.
Good afternoon, fellas.
The Celtics breaking news before Sherrod can even have his AG1.
I know. I'm literally in the middle of using my frother to make it perfect. And I'm like, hey, Malcolm, bye-bye, Malcolm. Hello, Jrue.
So let's, Bobby, not to interrupt, just because we're bringing Sherrod in here, and I think it's worth pointing out. Sherrod and Jimmy were definitive. They do this deal with Rob. I emotionally couldn't really answer that question, though I think at the end of the day, you still take the swing because you have to look at what Rob actually is instead of what you want Rob to be and what you hope Rob will be. And the reality is somebody whose days are probably numbered and whose knee is, the Patriots joked about, there was a report about Juju Smith-Schuster's knee about to explode. Like Rob's knees are about to explode. Like he's a legit ticking time bomb. But it's true. The highs are so high. It makes sense. This is an incredibly aggressive all-in move by Brad Sherrod.
I'm listen. See,
This is the opposite of Danny. Danny wouldn't let stuff go. Brad's like, take everything. I want as many stars
Trade
as
the
possible.
picks, baby.
And trade the picks and everybody else and young players. And I don't care. I want the guys I want. And he got them.
We always talk about coaches and players and GMs who are in win now mode. Brad doesn't talk about it. He is about it. This is a win now mode. There is nothing about this deal that looks beyond this season. That is why you're doing
Maybe
this
two.
Deal.
If he opts in, and then you can figure it out. Yeah.
Right, exactly. And the thing about it is, if you're adding, and this, it makes a lot of sense if you start to think about it. If you're adding impact players that can help you win now, if for some reason they don't work out, what do? You move them. Malcolm Brogdon, they brought him in here to help them win a championship. Clearly that didn't pan out. So what are they going to do? They're moving him on to some other guys who they think, or another guy who they think can help them get a chip. And when you look at the way the East is starting to shape up now, if we're being honest and real about it, everyone other than Boston and Milwaukee is playing for a participation trophy, because they're the only two teams that you can look at right now.
You're going to count out Miami again?
Yes, I'm going to count out Miami again.
I'm scared.
Yes,
I'm too scared to do
Miami,
it.
I am not.
Miami just has they not only did they not add the superstar player, they lost important players. They're losing guys. They're losing streaks.
So that's what you got to be most excited about.
Their bit players that were killing you are going away. Like they're Miami's in trouble. We say this every year and count them out, and there's probably no athlete in sports I admire and respect more than Jimmy Butler, honestly. So like his will alone, sure, they're always going to be annoying, but man, did you separate yourself from a talent perspective. Amazingly, look back, if we were to find a show, this is where it's very interesting. If we were to find a show from a couple of years ago when the Celtics were kind of languishing a little bit, and you just looked overall pre-Derek White trade, just around the room at the overall talent on this team, and you're like, man, they have to level up. The problem here is the drop from Tatum and Brown to everybody else is big, right? There's nobody you can even pretend is a number 3, right? And that carried almost even into last year, even though you had more talented players. But look at what you've leveled up in terms of the ceiling and the caliber of players you've brought in. Derek White and what he turned into last year, Kristaps Porzingis, and now Jrue Holiday. Like Porzingis is your 4th best player, like maybe 5th.
That's ridiculous.
Porzingis is your 5th best player, probably all around. That's insane. So again, we're going to talk about depth and this and that. Absolutely. But now it comes down to roster construction. Do you have enough role players to play the roles you need them to play? Whatever you get out of Hauser, shoot. Whatever. We got to stop lamenting what Hauser can't do and what Brissett can't do and what these guys can't do, and just recognize everyone else has a very specific job. Scoring and a whole bunch of other stuff is absolutely taken care of here. Mm-hmm. You have stars everywhere. I mean, it's an amazing amount of talent here.
You have defense everywhere too again, which is great.
Yeah. Your defense has done a 180 from like 48 hours ago. 24 hours ago to where it's at now.
Yeah.
So that's the biggest reason I want to
lament Rob, and you want to bemoan, the overall package, what you gave. I mean, the picks don't matter. They don't for stars. They do for like small upgrades, because you do have to refresh and replenish along the way, but they don't matter for stars, because chances are you're just not, that's not going to be.
And one of these picks isn't yours. It's the Warriors.
Yeah, it was Golden State's anyway. So you basically gave away the 29 here, the 29 pick.
And now that this, and I was just going to get to this, obviously I wasn't a huge fan of the Smart Porzingis deal, but connecting it with this, everything makes a lot more sense, doesn't it? And I think you said it, John, for all the people who said you lost a ton in Smart in the room and at the point of attack defensively, and the energy and grit, there was really no better player to replace Smart with than Jrue Holiday. In fact, as you've said, it's an upgrade here. So that makes everything on this front make a lot more sense. You cashed in the pick you got back for Smart from the Warriors. So it's hard not to like this, just because of how good the player is here in Holiday. And I know a lot of people love Rob, so it hurts for a minute, but people will like it in time.
Yeah, there are going to be games without question that you're going to see, damn, Rob would have helped us win this game. But I'm pretty confident that there are going to be more nights where you're going to be like, wow, Jrue really stepped up in the third quarter to limit so-and-so to 2 for 6 shooting. Or, Porzingis really came through with big shots in the fourth quarter. Or Tatum, was 5 for 17, but they still won by 17 because Jrue Holiday had 30 points. This deal gives them a much greater cushion for their best players to not be at their best, and you still win. And ultimately, you're going to need your role players, your non-Tatum, your non-Brown guys to step up. And now they've got bigger, better, badder players that can make that happen on a consistent basis. And it positions you to do exactly what this season is going to be all about, and that's winning a championship.
And I think something not lost, but something we haven't talked about yet. We've talked about the defense. We've talked about scoring. We've talked about leveling up talent-wise. This to me is the big cherry on top. Is just a better decision maker than what they've had with the other three guys before them. Okay. It's a person I'm more comfortable with the ball in his hands than anybody who we've had running point who are really not true point guards. I have much more.
You gotta go back to Rondo.
Yeah. I have much more confidence in Jrue's ball handling now. And I said this, Bobby, we would have realized very quickly that what Derek White wasn't, which is a shame because we would lose sight of what he is, but he's not. You would end up with a lot of point Tatum and a lot of stuff you didn't want, and the ball in those guys. And I don't like that offense. I don't like that team. Sure, the offense will flow through Tatum from time to time and it spells, but you would have had it running through Tatum a lot this year. And I think that kills you for the type of team that you want to be. Pace and space, really get it going, get good shots, play fast, play aggressive, move the ball, move without the ball. I just don't think you get that here. Now you're freeing these guys up to just be themselves. And you've just added another guy who, he's a 40% 3-point shooter the last 3-4 years in the NBA. You've got people who can shoot it everywhere finally, and so when they defer off of those, you have two things. You've got both the playmaking and there's no more slacking off of Smart trying to coax Tatum and Brown into swinging it back to the point guard and letting him jack a 31% three. Now you've got a guy who can actually knock him down. It changes how defenses are going to play these guys because you just can't. It's just going to be really, really, really challenging. You can't force the ball into the hands of Rob. When you're playing Rob on the floor, Smart on the floor at the same time, there's just not enough shooting out there. There just wasn't.
I was always worried about how Porzingis and Rob were going to fit together offensively.
It was going to be weird.
You could have imagined Rob standing around doing nothing and clogging up the lane, especially when you want Porzingis involved in those actions. Now, this does put the spotlight back on Porzingis. You're out there alone. They're probably going to start Jrue and White, right? That's what I'd have to imagine they're going to do here. I don't think they're going to send White back to the bench. So he's the only big out there. And he doesn't have the strongest core. Guys can definitely get into him at times, some of the bigger centers, and he'll be guarding those guys again. So this does put a lot on him at that position there. He brings a lot of length to the table. I'm sure they'll scheme it up in different ways to help him out. But Tatum's back at the 4. Brown sliding over to the 3 again. You're back to small ball to some degree. Fortunately, Holiday's so versatile at that point guard spot that he can guard so many different positions, and you probably can get back to a lot more switching.
But you know what, Bobby? It puts a little bit more, I think, of a focus on Joe Mazzulla.
Yeah.
Because now you've got the type of pieces that have experience. They have, they've played together a little bit. You've got a guy with championship medal in the mix. Your job is to put them in the best position to be successful. To your point, Bobby, they are going to have to play a little bit differently because they don't have that type of physicality that you obviously would want in the middle. But you know what? That's where your coach earns his check. This is where we're going to find out whether Joe Mazzulla is making the kind of growth that you need to make to be a championship caliber coach, or are you just a really good coach who can kind of manage the shop and make profits and make wins and things like that, but maybe not get them over the hump. I'm excited about the opportunities that Joe Mazzulla is going to have because he has pretty much everything you could possibly want. And remember, we're not even talking about Al Horford, who, again, we don't expect Al to play 70 games, but Al is going to, I think, help cushion a little bit of that lack.
Keeping Al was important. It really was.
I think having Al go back, I think, a little bit to the pre-3-point shooting Al and be a little bit more on the block now, I think this might be the year to kind of cut back on the threes and have him play a little bit more closer to the rim, because they need it. They're going to need that.
Yeah, and I wouldn't mind still seeing him play the 4, staggering in a little bit if Porzingis can push to 35 minutes a night.
You can't resist the double big, can you?
In rotation, I wouldn't start those. I wouldn't start those two together.
Start them.
But you do still have Kornet behind these two if you do want to do it on a certain night. If the other team's bigger, there might be some matchups where that still works. So
I thought we got at least 20 minutes without mentioning Luke.
15 minutes in, Kornet.
I thought 20. I thought the
Kornet
line
survived.
20.
I wasn't ready to give up Kornet, John.
Tim's here for you.
Kornet survives. Pritchard survives. Hauser survives. So you're high on Hauser too now, stepping up into a bigger role, John.
I'm not high on it. I have the same philosophy, and it's driven me nuts forever. Like, it's everybody can't be everything. If they were, they'd all make $45 million. Like, it doesn't work that way. Like, nobody has guys who can shoot and dribble and defend and all of that. They don't. Those guys get paid max deals. The other guys just play roles. Like, they do the best they can. You know, with a person like Hauser, he's just got to be there to shoot. And if you have a lineup where there's space and you put him out there with other guys that you have to account for, he's just going to be taking wide open threes all day, which is what you want. And if they have to extend out to Hauser, it's just going to free up driving lanes for your other players. So again, you put him out there to do one thing and then you let him do it. And that's it. And you live with whatever else happens. You live with Pritchard, you live with flaws. Everyone can't be a perfect player, but in crunch time, when you need it and when you've got it. Oh, and first of all, look around the East right now. Depth isn't really a thing anybody is valuing now. So there's a lot of teams that are going to be, putting guys out there in their 7, 8, 9, 10 role that aren't necessarily gonna threaten you anyway. So it doesn't matter as much.
Especially on that Milwaukee side.
Yeah, exactly. So, like, I mean, if you're looking at it as a 2-horse race, Milwaukee's got some real depth issues as well, too.
Well, let's go back to that Horford point, too, when it comes to depth, because you have to think he'll be the backup center. Sherrod wants to see him playing more center style again in that role.
Yes.
I love his ability defensively at that position. Offensively, I do think the usage last year was probably due in part to his decline around the rim, and we'll see if he can regain some of that. I think he'll be 38 this year. The miles are just massive, but again, I wanted him being part of this team. You could only rip out so much leadership. You could only rip out so much of what they were before, and he's still a big part of that. Plus, he's still the best option to defend the Embiids and Giannis's of the world when it comes time for that. But do you need a little more center depth now? Did you lose a little too much at the 5 with Rob being gone here?
I think it depends on how you use Al. I mean, I think Al can really take a lot of those big man minutes and call him his own. Because here's the thing: you don't necessarily need Al in terms of spacing the floor if you've got Porzingis and you've got Tatum and you've got Jrue and you've got Brown and you got Hauser. I mean, why do you really need your center to be able to shoot 30-35% from three-point range? No, you need Al, I think, to provide a presence around the block more so that can open things up for your shooters. Force defenses to actually react to him now and go back to doing the things that made you a 5-time All-Star. Al was a really good scorer around the rim. And while he can't do that at the same level he did 8, 9, 10 years ago, he still can be a presence for you down on the block. I just think that at this point, if you're Joe Mazzulla and you're looking around at all the nice, shiny toys you got to play with, some of those toys you got to put in a different box than you had them in previously. And Al, to me, I think is one of those pieces. He needs to be on the block more this year. He absolutely needs to be on the block more.
High post too.
I don't disagree. Sure, absolutely. You don't want to just camp him out at the 3-point line and leave it there, but also you have that flexibility if that's what ends up happening, and you have a guy who can step out there and shoot it. And again, you have to take into consideration, like, everyone's going to say, "Hey guys, well, Brogdon and Al were like, number 2 and number 3 in the league in 3-point shooting last year." Yes. What does that mean for this year? Regression to the mean. Like,
I was worried about Brogdon going in this year. I really was.
I was worried Brogdon might be like,
checked out.
No, if not checked out, 50, 60, like 70% of what you got last year, whether it was a health thing or whatever. But the shooting, I don't think was sustainable. I don't think that's his level, 45% from three. I mean, it's like the 1 year Al did that, and everyone's like, whoa, I think
By the way, there's a different different tenor to Brad saying, yeah, Brogdon's really healthy. He's ready to go. They want it now.
Yeah.
There really is.
Look.
Ready to go to another team.
Yeah.
He didn't give you the last end of that. Yeah.
Yeah, the whole thing is pretty funny, actually. It really is. But, you might have seen, I just want to put it out. It's pinned in the chat as well. Media Day is tomorrow. And we will be live there at Celtics Media Day, and
Hopefully
be pumping
Jrue's
out
there.
We'll be pumping out press conferences early. I'm curious if Holiday is there or not, but
I doubt it.
But if you guys want to watch, the reaction is going to be amazing here because, I mean, this is fresh news. Not only the addition, it's our first chance to talk to these guys about literally everything. And it's going to be, I'm sure, some sadness about Rob, some excitement over Holiday. But it's the first time we're getting a chance to talk to these guys. So if you want to take it in with us, click on the link here, subscribe. We've already kind of set it up. Turn on your notifications. You'll be notified. We're just going to roll that thing all day long and just be pumping out those press conferences. Bobby will be down there. I'll be down there. Josue, Sherrod, I'm not sure if teaching allows you to break free and pop down for a little bit, but we'll be hanging out. We'll be reporting on it throughout the day. So you definitely want to keep it to CLNS Media for all of the latest and greatest. Couple other things I want to tell you guys before we continue on, because there is a ton to talk about.
I got one more thing on the center.
Hold on. No, we're going to do this first.
No, this first, Bobby. Come on.
FanDuel, baby. Football season is upon us, and you want to get going with FanDuel. Again, you got 3 minutes to get your 1 o'clocks in. I don't know if there's enough time to sign up and do that, but you should still sign up anyway if you're interested. It's the number one sports book
until 4, right?
In America. Yeah, the official wagering partner of the CLNS Media Network and the official betting partner of the NFL. But go to fanduel.com/Boston. Take advantage of the special deal. Bet 5, get 200 in bonus bets. Restrictions apply, but that's all you have to do. Fanduel.com/Boston. Take advantage of that special offer here. And if you're not really sure what you're supposed to be doing while you're betting, check out OddsR. Go to oddsr.com/Celtics. Download the app. Get a 30-day free trial. What's OddsR? They use intelligent analysis, analytics, AI, lots of different tools to tell you how to bet smarter. They're not a sports book, but they're going to tell you what you need to do to just bet smarter. And trust me, it's some really, really, really good and sound advice and stuff that you can't find everywhere. So check out oddsr.com/Celtics 30-day free trial. And again, pairs really well with FanDuel. If you do sign up or you already have an account, check out OddsR as well. Bobby, go ahead.
So everyone's going to be worried about the center depth right now, what they're losing to now. Porzingis is injury proneness, of course. In the whole dynamic of what they were doing before, giving up Smart, adding Porzingis, having the 2 big men behind him, you still needed Porzingis to be healthy and to do everything that you imagined he was going to do for this whole thing to work here. So you're really not in all that different of a place, I don't think, in terms of the health and availability and depth at the position. You said it the other day, John. How many teams have 3 starting level centers? Not many. So you have 2, and that's good enough.
Look at what you've got. You've got 2 top 7 wing players. You have 2 outstanding point guard types, and you have 2 very, very, very good bigs. That's your team. That's your depth. That's all you've got. But you're strong at every position. You just don't have a lot behind.
You don't need a third string big man if you're healthy.
In your deep depth. And so if you're healthy, less so. And then you get by with, you just have to live with 10 to 12 Cornet minutes, 12 to 14 Hauser minutes, 10 to 12 Pritchard minutes, and that's it. That's your team. That's 9 players. That's how it works. That's what you play. That's it.
Yeah.
And so that you just got to live with that. And whoever steps up, whether it's Brissett or right, exactly.
And if Porzingis gets hurt, you're screwed anyway.
I mean,
that's how it was always
going to be. Any team loses a key player, you're going
to be screwed.
If not screwed, they've got a lot of work to do there, to get it going. So And I don't know if you think anybody else steps up. I know they're bullish on Walsh. I don't know if he can make real strides this year. But
O'Shea?
and O'Shea obviously is another one that you're talking about. Who's the other guy I'm forgetting? The defensive guy.
Lamar Stevens came in.
Lamar Stevens.
Lamar Stevens, you think is going to get some minutes as well because he can defend?
I love that pickup.
And
I felt better about Lamar's minutes before Jrue came on the scene. Put it that way.
Yeah,
that's true.
But here's the thing: is that's a person who played legit minutes on a contending team, on a solid team last year. So that's not a throwaway. That's someone you can trust to play minutes and fill a role. So if the role players fill their roles, the talent level is off the charts for this team right now. And just again, think back where they were, right?
Wonder if this pulls Blake back into the mix too. They have an open roster spot now, so maybe he ends up saying, "All right, this team's much closer than it looked a couple of days ago. I'm gonna jump back on the bandwagon here."
Or maybe we'll see Blake at some point past training camp.
Yeah, that's true.
Which, if I were Blake, that would be my play. If there was a team that I felt that, I want to play with them, but let me just let this training camp stuff get out of the way, and then I will join forces.
And he could potentially play some minutes on this team. We'll debate the starting lineup going forward. The one thing I do worry about, though, at that center spot, what they were doing with the double bigs this year boded better for Porzingis to stand near the rim and just defend the rim, which fit his mobility issues well. I do worry a little bit about him being at center alone if they're playing a Milwaukee where Dame's going to be stepping around the screen and firing up 11 threes a game and he has to get out to the perimeter to guard those. They're going to have to get a little creative, back to your point, Sherrod, the coaching here in terms of how they handle those pieces on the roster right now to make it work with Porzingis at center here, because he did play with the center last year. I believe he played with a center in Dallas too, off the top of my head. I can't really remember. And of course he did going back to the Knicks. So he hasn't been alone at center a lot throughout his career. He's always had a guy who can step out and guard the perimeter a little bit better next to him. So that does leave you a little bit exposed here too. But again, could you have relied on Rob this year? That's what I keep going back to. It was always going to be a risk. You wanted to, but you didn't know. Can he start? Right. Can he stay healthy? Can he fit next to Porzingis? We had a million questions about that.
Yeah, I don't think Porzingis is a very good defender. He doesn't totally suck, but he's not very good. But he's 7'3", and he's playing away from the basket often. So on those pick and rolls, he's not going to defend those shots well, other than use his length. And that's the thing I really want Joe to just kind of get him to understand, that you don't have to lock kids up defensively. Use that 7'4", 7'5" wingspan of yours to contest shots. Yeah. That's literally what they need you to do. Be a shot contester. You don't have to be a great shot blocker. You don't have to lock guys in and have them moving to where they don't want to go. Just contest shots better. That's all you really have to do at that position for him.
Yeah, it does become a challenge against the great three-point shooters, though, and it has for him in the past. I remember, I think it was in the bubble, he's just kind of sitting there watching Dame fire up threes with the Blazers as he made three after three after three. So there's still some questions.
Dame does that to everybody. Let's be real.
Yeah, and you have
Porzingis is not like a mark in that regard. That's what.
And you have
that's game. It's game.
Yeah, and you have two of the best defensive guards here in the league to navigate those screens and fight through them. And
you have first team and second team all defensive guards on this team. You have two.
Is there a better defensive backcourt?
You have two wings who, when they want to, are capable of playing all defensive level defense. Brown, I'm not so sure about, honestly, but they're athletic enough to be able to play defense. You've got Al, who can guard multiple positions and obviously is good against those bigger bodies. So again, the burden on a guy like Porzingis, he doesn't have to be. It lessens the burden on him to be the guy who, swats away everything in the big rim deterrent when it's just you've got so much pressure on the ball at the perimeter and so many people swarming all over the place. It's going to it's just going to be challenging to score.
It still fits the system well because those guys can funnel the opposing guards into the mid range. And
let me ask you this.
Porzingis.
I do believe, though, Sherrod and Jimmy were gung-ho and Bobby and I were a little on the fence. As much as it was for me an emotional attachment to Rob, I also think that it's possible the team you had was already a title contender, and now this team is also a title contender, but is it that much more of one? So what do you guys think? Is this team significantly better than they were an hour ago?
Yes.
You think so?
Yes, I think so, because when you look at winning a championship, John, and we both know this, it's not so much about what your team can do, but what can your team do to the others who are contending? How do you match up against others? And you look at the Eastern Conference, Milwaukee made a major push to get Dame, and that positioned them to be at the table of last team standing. And Boston has countered that chess move with literally the guy that you got rid of to bring in Dame, essentially. And that is in the context of all the other pieces that you already had in place if you're the Celtics. So, yeah, I mean, they were a title contender before the move, and they're, I think, an even stronger one now because they've addressed what I think most people thought might be their potential downfall, and that is a lethal pick and roll tandem with Giannis, who can pretty much get anything and everything he wants going to the basket, and Dame, who can do similar, and he can get everything he wants beyond the three-point arc. Now you've got a guy in Jrue Holiday who can kind of muck that up a little bit for Milwaukee. It's not as clean and smooth a process for them to do some of the things that they want to do, because Boston now has as close to an equalizer as you could potentially have. And by no means, please don't confuse that with saying Jrue and Dame are the same. Dame is a better player, but Jrue, in the context of the players that he's going to be with now in Boston, they can do some things to make life for Dame way harder than it would have been if Boston did not make this deal.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. Like, part of me was, like when Milwaukee made the trade, I was like, good. Like, I guess they're better, but I didn't think they were that much better.
Don't you think they could have predicted too that he'd end up in Boston? That's what surprises me. I think
it was possible. I do wonder if you told Milwaukee ahead of time, you can do this, but Holiday's going to end up a Celtic. Would they be like, ooh, I don't know.
Yeah. Did they think the Heat were going to strike or something? Or
yes,
Warriors?
I think Milwaukee gambled on the fact that we'll get Dame and Jrue will go out to Portland, and then Philadelphia or Miami will add him. And they know we're still will be better than Philadelphia and Miami. And so I think they took a calculated gamble that he would not end up in Boston. And I think part of that was because they're basing it on how the Celtics have done in the past. They're having the Danny Ainge flashbacks because Danny Ainge, I don't think would have done this deal. I don't think Danny would have done this deal.
Man, Danny wouldn't have done a lot of deals they've done in recent years.
Right. But Brad,
Romeo would still be here.
All right, Bobby. No, there will be no Romeo slander on this episode. There will not be any of that. No, I just think that Brad has established himself as his own man in terms of being a GM, and part of that identity is rolling the dice on players like this. And it's not even that big a roll of the dice on the player as much as it is on the assets that you're parting with. Something that Danny, I thought, had trouble letting go of, because I do think that Danny got very attached to his players that he drafted. And sometimes that attachment would almost make him pause before doing what most other GMs in that position would have done.
You mentioned the assets going out. You're also sacrificing something in the future, I think. And we talked about this a little last episode. This is a guy on a 1-year deal, effectively. $37 million. Mm-hmm. If he gets the full 140% increase that he's due in the next contract, he could start at $50 million next contract.
Not happening.
So hopefully you have something worked out here, or you at least have an idea of what he could make. And they've worked with his agent before. It's Jaylen Brown's agent, as well as Smart's and Horford. So they have a good relationship with the agent here, but I don't think he's going to give them a huge discount either, just because of that.
Well, I don't think he's going to give him a huge discount unless Jrue makes it clear that, look, this is where I want to be. Mm-hmm. If they win a championship this year, that changes everything in a good way for the Celtics, because if you are part of a championship team, you're more likely and willing to leave a little bit of money on the table to keep the band together, so to speak. And if it's Jrue Holiday, you've won 2 championships with 2 different teams, and the team that you're on now, you're not counted on to be the best player or the second best player, not even the third best player. And if that's the case, you can transition gracefully into just being a role player, making good money. And again, as you pointed out, Bobby, the fact that his agent also represents Jaylen and all those other guys, he understands the economics of the Celtics better than any agent out there, so he knows what his guy's
You
value
just
would
dropped
be.
the bomb on it with the Brown contract.
I wonder if
Oh,
I
look.
wonder if the Celtics do the Harden with him. The
Go
wink,
year to
wink.
year.
Opt in, and there's something waiting for you. There's pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. But
He does have an opt-in, yeah, for probably close to 40 million. So
yeah,
that
I
could be the
wonder how that
compromise.
goes. We have a couple more aspects of this we want to talk about. Again, quickly, we want to tell you about, and Sherrod, let's tilt it back. There it is.
All gone, baby.
Sherrod came ready and rolling with AG1, another sponsor here on the Garden Report.
Woo!
Our partner here, AG1, is a daily foundational nutritional supplement that supports whole body health. I drink it every day. Sherrod drinks it every day because, one, I like everything that it does for me. It tastes good. Tired of taking a lot of supplements. Wanted a single solution, and that's what AG1 does. You take it in the morning, usually before working out, or while you're making your coffee. Bang, one scoop, cup of water, and you're done. Boosts in energy, immune system, gut health, whatever have you. Again, as we said, one-stop shopping for all of that stuff. Instead of going to get a million pills and supplements, you just have it all there. AG1, it ends up being less than $3 a day. So go check it out right now. Go to right here, drinkag1.com/garden. You get a free 1-year supply of vitamin D and 5 free AG1 travel packs, with Jimmy Toscano has taken with him on the road right now. Jimmy doesn't settle for the 5. Jimmy buys like 30 travel packs and takes them with him. I'm not kidding.
Insane.
Yeah, this isn't blowing smoke either. Everybody in the Garden Report religiously takes this down. So definitely check it out if you are interested. Other sponsor of ours, and again, if you're too busy and you're on the go and there's a lot going on for us tomorrow as well with Celtics Media Day. Factor Meals is the answer for you. It's America's #1 ready-to-eat meal kit. You have a ton of different selections and options, and it's fresh, delivered to your door. It takes 2 minutes to heat it and eat it, and you are good to go. So again, super busy in the fall with back to school, kids, work heating up and all of that stuff. Factor Meals is the answer for you. Check it out at factormeals.com/newsfeed50. Use the code newsfeed50 for 50% off. Once again, factormeals.com/newsfeed50. Use the code newsfeed50 for 50% off, and support either of those sponsors right there. Give us a receipt for it. Kaboom.
Boom.
Garden Report
I need
t-shirt,
one of
fresh for
those.
you to start the season right. Go check it out. Garden Report t-shirt. Guys, rolling on here. Other thoughts that you're kind of collecting here as this thing went down, and I was certain, I honestly felt it in my bones this was happening today. I said it on our last Garden Report. Malcolm Brogdon won't even be there at Media Day. I thought there was very likely this was going to happen.
Brogdon hasn't been there the whole way,
Yeah,
so you have to think they've been working on something there.
I think they told Brogdon, we're going to find a way to move you one way or the other. So just hang tight.
So that's interesting. Yeah, I wonder if he actually wanted to go to LA in that deal, and then he ended up back, and it's like, oh, and then, they're like, all right, we'll find something. And he had been sitting with the Celtics for months and months and months. Again, he sacrificed coming off the bench last year. He's a guy who's up for a contract. He's a guy who, got hurt at the end there and really couldn't impact them. So I wonder if he just wanted a fresh start somewhere else. We'll see, obviously, once he lands wherever he lands now, probably the Clippers or Heat or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Malcolm, part of you feels bad because he wasn't able to what I call seal the deal.
Yeah.
And that is be able to be who he is when it matters most, which is the playoffs. And so that you feel bad about that. But, Malcolm's a pro. He's going to bounce back. He'll be in a better situation than he would have been in Boston. I don't think that I don't think there's any animosity per se in his time in Boston, because really up until the fact that they were looking to move his ass, everything seemed to be okay. And having been a pro as long as he has, he knows this is just business. So I think he'll be fine. But it will be interesting to see where he winds up ultimately. Would anyone be shocked if he wound up in somewhere like Miami, which would be kind of crazy to think about it. But they need to do something to significantly upgrade their roster, considering the losses that they have taken in terms of guys going elsewhere. And the fact that, the big names that were out there this summer, they completely, struck out on altogether. So it'll be interesting to see where he winds up, because all signs you would think would say LA, but would any of us be surprised if he's in Philadelphia or Miami?
Yeah.
I wouldn't.
No,
Really?
I wouldn't there. And again, I think, I think the writing was on the wall there. I think they were finding a way to move him either prior to camp for something else, or he was a certain deadline deal. I really didn't feel like Brogdon was a part of their plans this year. It's interesting because, like, you wonder if Brad misread the market when he made that move. But at the end of the day, it gave you the salary necessary to be able to level up and get what you got here. I'd feel a ton better about this team if Grant Williams was still here right now. For all the heat I've given Grant, that would actually kind of be that last piece you would need to, like, feel good about the back end of your rotation a little bit.
By the way, you see him in Dallas already staking his claim on leadership.
Boy, is that going to get tired fast. When they come out of the gate 2-7, no one's going to want to hear a freaking word from Grant Williams. Trust me.
Leading the huddle on day one.
Oh, man.
Love it. I love it.
What?
I love it. I'm going to miss Grant. I am going to miss
They're
Grant.
going to miss Grant. They could have used him.
This. Forget about basketball, okay? Likability, okay? I'm not saying these guys aren't likable. You might grow to like them. And by all accounts, Jrue Holiday is everything. He's a pro. He's a good locker room guy, and I think he's a guy. But just in terms of some sort of emotional attachment to players, you have now lost Marcus Smart. You just lost Rob Williams, who everybody loves. And Grant Williams was kind of like, a love-hate sort of guy. He'd caught a lot of heat, but he was clearly like one of those guys too. They've lost a fair amount of kind of likability and personality here.
It's about wins, baby.
It is. And I'm the first one to say it. Like, get those guys out. But just in terms of how fans react and respond to this team, obviously you react and respond to wins above all else. But, like, there is that whole I want to do it with my guys sort of thing. And obviously you prefer to do that versus hired guns. So it does feel like you've just invited strangers in. Like Porzingis, like, what tie does he have to Boston? Holiday, like, it's a total makeover. Derek White's only a couple of years old. It's not the end of the world, but Rob and Smart and Grant were your guys. You had them. I know, I'm not saying this. I'm saying I know a lot of people view it through that lens, that, like, you want to win with your guys, and those guys were your guys, and you ship them all away.
Well, the thing, Johnny, I think you're talking about is just all those guys that are not here are very personable. And they make it easy to like this team, even when they're not playing great. And there are going to be stretches where this team doesn't play great. And what we're going to do, we're going to hammer the hell out of them because they don't have a bunch of genuinely likable, personable guys. I think they're likable, but they're not really personable. And that could be a problem if things get a little rocky early on, because I don't know how this group will respond to that. I don't know if they can just kind of laugh it off or just not make a big deal about it, and just have a certain levity to it that just makes you comfortable with them losing 3 out of 4 games, 2 of those losses to, like, Charlotte. I don't know. Because I'm kind of going through the Rolodex of the players on this team now. I don't know if there's one guy that I would just sit down and have a conversation with that has nothing to do with basketball and come away thinking that was a great conversation.
Yep.
I don't know if they have those kind of guys.
I don't know. We'll see what it's like. It'll be an interesting team to cover this year. I do wonder, like, how quickly Holiday can take a leadership veteran, like, kind of like leader of this team sort of role, because again, one of the question marks coming in was how much did you lose? Like, we joke about Grant here kind of letting the Mavericks have it on day one of training camp, but the reality is he was one of those guys who'd be on the bench, yelling at people, whether players wanted to hear it or not, or whether players wanted to hear it from him. It was at least somebody who had a voice. Marcus Smart had a voice. They really lost it. This whole, like, I think we're way past the point of asking Brown and Tatum to be things that they're not capable of being. They're not vocal leaders, throw chairs, grab a guy by the shirt, get in their face. Sometimes they have a tough time motivating themselves. I don't think they're going to motivate others. So I think Holiday hopefully steps directly into that role as the type of guy who can kind of be that, that tough, center for the team.
It's a tough role, though.
It's a tough role.
It's a tough role. It's a tough role, not just because of what it takes to do it effectively, but because you're the outsider joining a group that's already built up chemistry and cohesiveness together. Now, granted, they've never won a chip, and you have. So that should give you an entryway into that little inner circle sooner than others. But I wonder if he's going to be more like Malcolm was, and just kind of try to ease your way into that, as opposed to just kind of just taking this team full throttle and saying, look, we got to get a chip. We got to get it now. I don't know if he's going to be comfortable doing that. This is where I think some of those assistant coaches, and I'm thinking specifically about Sam, who might just kind of give him a little nudge and just let him know, that's what they need from you. I, as an assistant coach, am going to be flapping my gums nonstop. That's what I do.
Yeah.
But they need you to be that guy, because I got a couple chips, you got a chip. They need you specifically in the trenches to kind of give them that focus and just kind of keep their eyes on the prize. Because as much as they want to talk about winning a championship and say they want to do all that they can to win a championship, you're one of the few guys, you're the only guy, I believe, on the roster who has done that, who has won a championship, been an integral part of that championship, and you've got the scars and the hardware to show that you went through that and you survived. So bringing that to the table, I think, I'm not sure how quickly Jrue can bring that to the table, but you're right, John. It should be sooner rather than later, though.
Yep.
It is an interesting dynamic because you do still have the camp from the last couple of years here of White, Brown, Tatum, Joe, Horford, and then you have the new stars coming in and Jrue, Porzingis, others here. Do they instill something different? I know I asked Brad about how Porzingis is going to impact the locker room, and he was like, yeah, sometimes it's best, new spot, just come fit in, figure things out. They should bring a new element to the room. They should. They should rock the boat when things aren't right. Again, the last thing I want to hear tomorrow is, we had a good year last year. It was great. We'll build on. There has to be a sense that last year wasn't enough, wasn't good enough. That's why half the team's gone now, and that things need to be much better, much tighter this year. I don't want to hear after losses to the Magic, we did some good things. We tried hard. That was ridiculous last year, and it was a big reason they fell short. And I don't want to hear any of that this year.
I've been back and forth. I can't stand hearing it, but what I really think they're saying is, I just don't want to talk to you guys about it. That's really what it comes down to.
But when things went wrong, John, it flipped. We lost our defensive identity. We didn't tighten things up earlier.
There's finger pointing too. But I don't know that the two necessarily go hand in hand. I just think, media reaction tends to be overblown in terms of how we analyze it. And again, I mean, I've done this my whole life. We're always watching and listening and trying to find some context in whatever it is they're saying and look for hints and clues. But I've always felt when they answer those types of questions about, we were fine, it's basically being like, we know we played like crap. I don't think you're qualified to tell me why we played like crap. I don't think you understand the game on the same level that I do. And I'm not going to give it up for you. I'm not going to sit up here and dance for your amusement and give you that big money quote so you can scurry back, to your editors and say like, ooh, I got Jalen to say this. I just think they just don't feel like giving it up in that setting. It doesn't mean it necessarily doesn't bother them. But you're right. As a fan, you want to see like more fire in the belly or whatever you want to say, at times.
I just hope that, John, that when we see them in that performative state, because that's kind of what they're doing when they give us, we just got to move on. Both teams played hard, blah, 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 yada, yada. I'm hoping that when the lights go out and the cameras are turned away and they're in the locker room and it's just them and the coaches and they're among themselves, that there's a level of pissed offness when they lose bad games, that there's emotions that we don't see publicly that are going down privately. And sometimes I don't know if that's happening, because the way they seem to be sometimes they cool breezing in the game where it doesn't really matter. And then you talk to them after the game and they sound like it doesn't really matter. It makes you wonder, when we're gone, is the same thing happening? Because the product we see in front of the cameras and the product we see on the court at times is very just casual, non-caring, and that
there was a sense of that last year. I don't think it was just for the cameras. Yeah. I think they've thought, and they've said as such in different situations, that we thought we were just going to be back to the finals. It was tougher to get up for Detroit on a Monday night, or Charlotte, or those kind of games. And those are the kind of games they lost throughout the regular season that set them back from that one seed. And in Atlanta, they went 6 games when they shouldn't have. And Philly, they almost lost a series that none of us thought they could have lost there. So they underperformed throughout the year. They did.
And I think a guy like Jrue Holiday is a great addition, not only in terms of what he can do on the court and all that, but also someone who understands the highs and lows that come with championship caliber basketball. He's won a championship and been through some tough games. He's been on the short end of playoff series that did not go anywhere close to how they were supposed to go for Milwaukee, and they wound up going home earlier than they should have.
Yeah.
He can speak to that during the regular season on a level that I think resonates in that locker room a little bit differently than if, let's say, a Marcus Smart or someone who is in the trenches with them, but hasn't experienced that level of highs and those type of lows before.
They'll probably respect him for that, right?
What's that?
They'll probably respect that experience he has.
Oh, they will love him for that.
Yeah.
Because that's that real truth, straight no chaser truth that they need in that locker room. And it's coming from a guy who isn't just talking about it, but he's in the trenches with you. It's a little different hearing that from him than, say, a Blake Griffin, who is going to be a Hall of Famer, has had a great Hall of Fame career, but he's never won it. He hasn't won at the levels that Jrue Holiday has won. He hasn't experienced the types of highs, ultimate highs, and painful lows that a Jrue Holiday has gone through as a player, and even some of the things Jrue has gone through off the court.
Or even Smart. There was a sense with Smart sometimes, and we talked about it too, right? He's calling the guys out. He's, holding guys accountable, but it's like, you shot that shot at the end of the fourth that was pretty wild there.
Yeah, right. There was a bit of a, do as I say, not as I do element to his leadership. And I think there's a tune-out factor. I think Marcus was loved and respected, but also it was kind of like, we got it. Like, I don't need to be told what I'm doing wrong because you do a lot wrong too. We all got to figure our stuff out there, but he wasn't necessarily the guy there to drive it.
So
I've said this all along. If Tatum and Brown cannot succeed unless they have people who can kick them in the butt and motivate them, they will never succeed. They will not. If they don't find it in themselves to be able to rise up to challenges, to try hard in the beginning of a game, to retain focus throughout an entire playoff game and series. I mean, you can have one dud, in the playoffs, a wake-up call sort of game. Like, yeah, we weren't ready for this. You can't have them every other day. I feel like
you love to say it. They had them in the finals
for 2 years, every other day, including the finals. Yeah, we just didn't come up and get up for this game. How is that possible? How is that possible? So if they can't do that, I don't care who left and who's here. They're toast, and this team's never winning anything.
It's a great point. Yeah, and on that Holiday point, there's an off-the-court locker room aspect to it. But you said it earlier, John. Will the Jays defer and have him handle the ball on many possessions? Will they split ball time with him? Will Jalen almost entirely give up ball time to a guy who's a much better ball handler than him here? That's another part that they're going to have to adjust to here in terms of having a ball-dominant point guard now in Holiday. So they have to give that up. They have to adjust to that. They have to play off the ball and be active off the ball. And this team, again, to make it worth Porzingis on the offensive end, guys got to be cutting. Guys got to be moving. Guys got to be active offensively. And that's another thing they've struggled with no matter who's been on the team with them.
Yeah.
I think that's part of coaching. I think.
Go ahead, Troy.
Go ahead, John.
No. You go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that to me, that's part of the Joe Mazzulla plans for improvement. For this upcoming season, he needs to get guys in position to be their most effective. And to your point, Bobby, more movement without the ball is an easy way to get guys better shots, particularly when you've got a five-man group on the floor that damn near every possession, you're going to have 5 legitimate scoring threats.
Yeah.
And that's something that not many teams can say that, in a 48-minute game, they'll spend probably 45 of those minutes with 5 legitimate scoring threats. That's impressive.
Yeah. By the way, catch and shoot threes last year, Jrue Holiday, 45%. That's awesome.
Look, he's great. He can run the point. He's a good decision maker. He can play off ball. He's a defender. He defends multiple positions. He's literally everything you want in a player and fills an absolute need. I'm going to ask one more hypothetical before we wrap it up and let everybody go off and watch football games, and it's all good there. Let's reverse things. And let's say at the beginning of the summer, Lillard trade goes through, Holiday is made available, and the Celtics go inquire about Holiday and make this deal. Do they still go get Porzingis?
Yeah.
You think so?
Yeah.
I think so. I think they realized
Or might you have
that
signed Grant and tried to figure some things out if you had it backwards, you know?
no, I think Grant was gone
Yeah.
regardless. And I think Grant, I mean, if we're being honest and real about it, I think Grant wanted to be out. Not because he didn't like it here or anything like that. Grant's a young man who wants to get on the floor and play. And that was not going to happen if he re-signed with Boston.
That was a
He was still
factor,
going to have he's going to have a limited role. So I think no matter what the order of operations were, I think the Celtics ultimately wanted to have some type of upgrade on the perimeter and some type of upgrade in terms of having another stretch big. Because I thought as the season progressed, they really needed to have another stretch big. And so they were able to get that before they could upgrade in the backcourt. But I think those were the two primary focuses for them this offseason.
I think there was always gonna be a scenario where both Smart and Brogdon went out the door this summer. Again, the original Porzingis deal was Brogdon going out, remember? So maybe Smart goes to Portland in this deal. I always think both those guys are going out the door. The fans kept saying, "Oh, Brogdon's injury kept Smart from being part of this team."
No, I believe they were both. I believe there were trades in place for both of them.
Yeah,
there were.
It came together way too quick.
Again, this scenario, you said it, Sherrod. They didn't just pivot to say, let's trade Smart at 11 o'clock that
And they
night.
would have had Jones over here as a backup point guard, and that's how it would have gone. That's how it would have gone down. I think they were both happening.
Yeah.
So I think those changes had been in works for a long time. In fact, I think we read the Windhorse article. They had been shopping Brogdon since June.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
that never stopped.
I mean, if there's a question as to why he never showed up, honestly, you wonder if behind the scenes Brad was like, we're still working to trade you. You can do your own thing. I understand it's a weird place to be in, but I'm not going to trot you out here and have you like smile and blah, 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 and this and that when this is what's happening. You know, so there might have been some transparency there as well.
And this is great on the
or he might have just never received an assurance when he said, so am I here or what? And Brad was like, I don't know, man. You know, like, I don't know.
Yeah, and he just may have said, when you know if I'm coming, then I will come.
Yeah.
But otherwise, I'm just going to keep doing my thing and working on and just getting ready for the season,
exactly.
regardless of wherever I'm at.
Right.
Yeah. And
that makes sense.
And there's a scenario where you would have had to move him going into the second year of his deal next summer in a much tougher position. And I said all along, they should not have just dumped him for salary relief or Tim Hardaway or some of these other deals being kicked around, even Norman Powell, like deals like that I didn't like because Brogdon was good for this team a year ago. I think he was useful in his role, but fortunately for them, they had an opportunity like this come up here with Holiday. And one thing I wrote about, as torn as I was about this deal, as I considered it, you minimize a lot of uncertainty with Brogdon being gone because you didn't really know where he was at health-wise or just mentality-wise. So now you're not worried about that. You were always worried about Rob. Is he going to make it through the year? Is he going to take steps offensively? Is he going to fit next to Porzingis? Now you're not worried about that. That's not part of the dynamic here. You really don't have many worries, at least for this year with Jrue. The only worry is going forward into the future. Who else do you lose because of the fact that he's here at 30, 40 million a year, maybe closer to 50. Porzingis is signed for the next 2 years at 30 now. Brown's about to start a $50 million deal, and then Tatum will start at 50 the year after that. So someone's going to shake loose here. Maybe it's Derek White. I know he's on a 2-year deal here. You could do something with him next summer. Pritchard, we'll see what happens there. But, man, Wick wants that championship. He is paying up in ways we never imagined now.
Yeah,
but I think he's always been willing to pay if you get the best players, get the guys that make sense. I don't recall there being a player that you could say that they would add that would significantly upgrade them. That he was like, nah, we're good. We're good at being like second round playoff team.
Yeah.
If this guy can get you a championship and it costs me a little bit of money, Wick's like.
I think Wick has officially reached the point of like most parents who like. You just like with kids, you're just like, I don't even want to know what it costs. You just sign the check and you move on.
Just
like,
go.
Yep, camp, whatever. You just do it's like
I love that analogy, John.
Because when you add it up, you're like, I just paid what for what? But you just do it. It's just what shit costs, Oh, club soccer, here you go. Sleepaway camp, here you go. And it's
is that the dad?
Is that camp? Yep, here you go.
Is that the dad luxury tax?
It's just if you do the math on it, you'll be like, I spent what on what? You just can't. You're like, this is the business I've chosen to be a father, to be a pro. This is what it takes. This is what it takes. And so that's where you're at here. I don't even think Wick's looking at the bill anymore. He's just like, just do it, Brad.
Just do it, Brad.
And just don't even tell me what it costs. All right.
All I know is if Holiday's there tomorrow, Wick's going to be there tomorrow too at the podium.
Look what we did. I love it. No, it's cool.
Let's just cap off the show with this stuff. The Celtics are prohibitive championship favorites now, in my mind. You guys agree?
Yeah, I felt that way even before this deal. I felt that they were a slightly better team than the Bucks. But now, yeah, to me, I think the bandwagon is at mass capacity right now as far as the Celtics being the favorites after this deal.
Well, let me see if I can back that up with some actual facts here. What does FanDuel have to say about it? They have this at this moment in time, co-favorites. They didn't have enough time to really think about it. They just had to do something before the Celtics bets started flooding in. So they made them co-favorites.
You know they're coming.
But you know that number is going to move, right?
Whoever got in on that little 500.
Yeah, exactly. If you got in before this, great. I'd still get in on it now because I think that number is going to move again and the Celtics will be favorites.
No Denver, huh? People still sleeping on Denver a little bit.
They're great. But it's to have co-favorites out of the East. This means like I really don't know what to do, but I gotta correct something. Yeah, here. So that's what they did there. So yeah, I would say the big question. Bench depth is an obvious question. You had it before. You have it again now. The big question is Joe. And it's going to continue to be Joe. We are not going to answer it in this show, but that's the one where you guys were saying, like, who's he going to be this year? Is he going to mature a little bit? Is he going to be less defensive about his choices? Is he going to know how to put these guys in the best position to win? Is the team going to buy into whatever his philosophy is? Or do you now have too many veterans and too many strong? Look at what you've got here. These guys are pros. Okay. You're not coaching D2 college here. You're coaching veterans who have different varying degrees of success here, but this is like, these are some big boys. They gotta really believe that what you're saying is the right thing. We can't have Joe wants to shoot threes, but we think we should be playing defense and driving the ball sort of situation here. That's not going to be great. So I am curious, like, does this change his thinking about what kind of team he wants us to be, their philosophy, his leadership? He's a big question mark here. A big question mark.
Because we know his teams, he likes to coach his team to shoot a lot of threes. And shooting a lot of threes doesn't necessarily align itself nice and neatly with elite defense. But you got to believe that Joe, and maybe this is where his assistant coaches come in, has to lead. Oh, Charles Lee, Milwaukee, now you get Jrue. Not bad. You got to believe that Joe is going to recognize and lean into and try to amplify the fact that he has probably the best defensive backcourt in the NBA. When you look at Jrue and you look at Derek White, you have to figure out a way to amplify that particular point, because when you do something and have something that no one else has, or they don't have it as good as you do, you absolutely have to maximize that consistently. And I don't know if three-point shooting Joe is going to maximize the fact that you've got elite defenders who can get you easy buckets in transition and can lock kids up. And maybe the score isn't quite as 137 to 115 that you'd like. Maybe them doing their jobs well keeps the score at like 114 to 101. Figuring out how to get the best out of his players who have elite skills, that's going to be the challenge for Joe.
Don't have a system. Play to the strengths of your players, okay? Is Joe going to be able to look at the roster he has now and figure out the best style of play for these sorts of guys, the best lineup combos? I mean, he couldn't figure out that Derek White was his best guard until game 78 last year. You know, like, it took forever. You're looking in here, he didn't know what to do with Brogdon either. You'd see games Brogdon's playing 14 minutes, like he just forgot about him. You know, like,
yeah, there was a lot of interpersonal dynamics there too, though, especially after the Udoka situation. I think he goes into this year in a much better place to succeed. And let's not forget, I've been as critical of Joe as anybody, but they started 21-5 doing some legitimately innovative things offensively, where we said,
making threes.
Did he just kind of solve? No, there was a lot of movement and action and flow to the
But
offense
Bobby,
too early on.
right, but Bobby, you know what happened. I mean, listen, when you start the season off and you're winning and that's great, you know what's going to happen. Teams are going to adjust. They're going to figure out some things, and they're going to
Teams
force you to
definitely
develop
adjust. Yeah, there's no doubt.
right. And to me, that's that was part of Joe's learning curve last year, was just figuring out how to counter or how to adjust to the counters that teams were making against him and some of the things he wanted to do. And it took him a little bit of time to figure that out. I'm hoping that experience will better prepare him to be able to counter attack what others are doing to him when they take away some of the things he wants to do initially.
Yep.
Yeah, and he has the assistants now. He needs one of these guys to step up as his defensive guy. There's no doubt. I don't know if that'll be Lee or Casello, whatever it'll be, but someone's got to really drill the defense for this group. I don't think, especially, I went back and read that Athletic article again, that sometimes they came out of the article, out of the huddle, and really didn't know what they were doing defensively. There's got to be someone there drilling that, going over film with guys, making sure everything's tight and emphasized on that end, because they really did play loose on that side of the ball last year. The motivation, all the stuff we talked about, which, John saying a few minutes ago, that's got to be handled in the room. That's got to fall on the players at a certain point. It can't really be Missoula motivating them on the importance of the year at this point. And there's really no one at this point that can save them in that sense. So that falls on the players. They need a defensive guy to emerge. And when it comes to the offense, as you said, Sherrod, there's got to be some flexibility here. They need to use Porzingis in the post. Maybe, to your point, getting Horford in different spots. The mid-range. He was very flexible with Brown from the mid-range. Can other guys utilize that spot on the floor if they're struggling from three? And Tatum, too. I really didn't love the way they used Tatum bombing away at the top of the arc from three last year 8 times a game. There's many different spots on the floor you can utilize him out of, with and without the ball. So there's responsibility on both sides, right? The players have to figure this out to some degree. Joe, I think, will be better. And fortunately, he has a staff that's in his corner and better equipped to handle things this year, because for all the excuses last year, and I know we hate excuses, they were kind of valid. The whole staff shot out the door the day after the season ended.
It wasn't great. It wasn't great. And you handed Joe, not only with zero experience, a guy coming from, back, second row Joe, and all the jokes and this and that. But I mean, he really cut the line to get to where he was in that position. So whatever assistants remained, we're looking at him like, this guy, like Stoudemire, whatever. It's like, okay. So yeah, it was a weird situation. And even when you compare it to someone like Brad, who came in with a terrific college coaching pedigree, he got to grow with some younger players who were there and who, it was easier to get them to buy
Brad
in.
said I had it much easier than
much
Joe did.
easier. Joe walks into a ready-made locker room that has championship aspirations, and that now doubled down on that 1 year later, all knowing that he had kind of an up and down year last year. So it's definitely some pressure on Joe. I'm curious how he carries himself too. We talked about lack of importance with how things are in the media, but perception matters a little bit. You can't be this nervous basket case every time someone questions, like, how many threes you took or why you took so many.
Too, didn't it?
I think
that built what people saw him as.
It changes the perception, and then the conversation is different. It really only matters what the players think, but I don't think he helped himself with some of that stuff last year. So just being altogether a little bit more like Zen, I think will help Joe this year, in how this is. Who is he gonna tell he loves this year? Well, he loves Jalen. He's gonna have to learn to love all over again. There's a lot of new faces.
He's gonna have to learn to love Jrue.
He's gonna have to learn to love these guys.
Love the new guy. Love the new guy. Since clearly you don't love the guys that have been there. Love the new guy.
What did you say to Jrue? What did you say to Jrue when he walked through the door? I told him I loved him. How is that possible, Joe? You just met him. Well,
love at first sight.
That's how it is.
Love at first sight.
I told him I loved him.
We said this too. I love, and we'll see, Brogdon might end up in Miami and maybe he'll be in position for revenge or whatever, but I love that they have Jrue when their chief rival in the East is his old team that just traded him, that he played with for years. He knows Giannis. He knows everything they do there. That's awesome. That's a great thing to have here. And you kept Jrue away from Miami. If the Heat got Jrue today, what would we be saying? Oh, geez, that's not great.
Miami becomes a legitimate threat.
Philly gets him. With all the Harden nonsense going on right now, you're like, oh, they ended up pretty good out of that situation. And now you have them, and those teams are saying, uh-oh, the Celtics have Jrue now? This is a good trade here. I know I was torn. Now that I see it, now that I can feel it, I really like
You
what they
see
did
the light,
there.
Bobby. I'm glad. Stay off that fence, Bobby. You spend too much time on the fence.
Yeah, it's hard for me, as
So-
you can see.
And I was worried they were going to send out Al. I was.
I'm wearing all black right now. I am in mourning and will remain so over Rob. That's gonna hurt. Like I know, like the thing some fans might do is like you almost kind of sort of want to see the other people you traded fail to feel better about the trade. I don't want to see Rob fail. I want to see Rob thrive, even if
Rob
it hurts.
is going to a great situation. He really is.
Well, if he's behind Ayton, and honestly, he's better than Ayton. So
they'll find that out real quick.
So we'll see. We'll see if they're going to have the same problem. Brad had 3 years ago, friggin' playing him behind Tristan. Like no, man,
You're
that's
so
your
low
guy.
on Ayton. You really are. I like Ayton. He was a center on a championship level team.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see, but I'm gonna miss a lot of that. It really is like I'm struggling a little bit with the
I'll
Rob
tell you,
thing. I really
Scoot
am.
Henderson is not going to miss him on the roll like the Celtics did for all those years.
Yeah,
he's going to be finding him.
Hopefully he went to lob heaven because he didn't have it here.
Yeah.
So
Scoot's gonna. I would not be shocked if Scoot is in the top 5 for assists per game as a rookie, because he's gonna have opportunities every night if guys can stay relatively healthy to rack up big assist numbers.
Yeah.
Oh, the Blazers did so great with that Lillard situation. They really did. Everyone's giving them crap a lot. Even the past couple of days, it's like, oh, they did Lillard wrong. And was this really better than the Heat package? Well, now you have 2 more great firsts. Draymond got hurt yesterday, so now that Warriors pick is already like, ooh, like something,
looking better.
So
I kind of like that Warriors pick. I wish they could have found a way to hang on to that, because they're like a disaster away from but who knows?
You can tell.
Yeah.
It is interesting that Portland was like, yeah, give us that.
That was obvious. I mean, you just gave them a player that makes them like no worse than like, the second best team in the East and a conference finalist, on a disappointing year. So that pick is 29. It's going to be hard for Golden State to get there. So it's obvious that that's what they held out for. I wish they could have, Celtics could have rolled the dice and keeping it.
Well, it's great that they had it, right? Because then you're saying, oh, the Celtics are giving up there. Would they give up in this 29? Maybe you're giving up 27 too, or a 20-30 swap. You would have been giving up a lot more of your own future in this deal if you didn't have that. So again, the way the Smart and Holiday trades connected together in the end was just perfect. They had Brad, we were sitting here 2 years ago saying, Brad's the GM? How's that going to work? Is he going to be gone a year? But he's just been perfect in this role. It's been unbelievable.
Yep. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot there, but I think we'd already started to decide how we were going to feel about this when we thought it was a possibility a couple of days ago. Now it's real, and as we're processing it, I think, like I said, some people were gung ho, but the rest of us were like, if it happens, we can roll with it. We get it. We get why it is, and this is the cost of doing business. But it costs you some depth. It costs you a beloved player. It costs you a player with a really high ceiling in Rob. And I think that's the thing that's going to hurt the most. I think the picks in Brogdon, people are absolutely fine to part with. You wish there was a different way to get this done, but there wasn't. I think we knew that a couple days ago. And that's where we are. So the deal gets done. Media Day is going to be incredibly interesting tomorrow. As we said, we will all be down there hanging out and kind of doing our thing. So make sure that
Thank God it's in Brighton.
Thank God. Canton's such a nightmare.
Are you going, Sherrod? Will we see you there?
I will be there at some point.
All right.
Yep. So we will check that out. Thank you guys for hanging with us on the Garden Report here today. This was obviously surprised everybody this morning, and we were able to kind of snap it together and bring you this show. There's still a lot of you out there in the chat. So again, thank you guys for hanging out. Follow us at CLNS Media. Bobby will kind of write it up for us over there on the site. We'll have more stuff coming out on our YouTube channels. As always, subscribe, spread the word, tell everybody this is the place to be. And as always, if you can support our sponsors, that of course is Fanduel. Odds are Athletic Greens, or AG1, I should say, and Factor Meals. Go check those out if you're interested in any of those products. It really helps us out when we do get sponsor support. Thanks for hanging out, guys. We'll see you tomorrow. Oh, I'm sorry. After the press conferences, we'll do another Garden report and kind of wrap up the reaction later on tomorrow night. So we'll have that as well. Take care.